So now, this is about another 15 slides right here. Because y'all want to talk about Gad. Y'all want to try to say that my Gadite brothers are Mongoloids. He is a goddamn lie. You understand? So Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Gad was conquered by a troop. Gad was conquered by the North American Indian cavalry, conquered by the English kings. You understand? Conquered by the Spanish, conquered by all of these people. You understand? But in the end, you understand, they're going to overcome. And how they going to overcome? You're going to find out. So now, Deuteronomy 33:20, and of Gad, he said, blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. Meaning what? If you enlarge Gad, you're increasing him. What did the so-called white man do to Gad? Did he enlarge him? Nah, he reduced him to reservations. Right. So if you're blessed for enlarging him, what does that mean you're going to do? If you're going to be cursed. You understand? A white man going to die for what he did to our people. That's right. He dwelleth as a lion. How does a lion dwell? A lion hunts. And what would Gad do? Gad would go all throughout the prairie and they would hunt the buffalo. Right. They would use that for their teepees, for their booths. Right. That they would dye the top of it red, just like we used to do in ancient times inside the scriptures. And tear at the arm with the crown of the head. Meaning, what did Gad do to his enemies? He went and he took that, you understand, that tomahawk, put it to the scalp of his enemies and tore back the crown. That's how he gonna overcome in the end. You understand? You telling me this is describing anybody else but the North American Indian? Right. Come on, man. Y'all out your damn mind. And he provided the first part for himself because there in portion of the lawgiver was he seated, meaning what? Gad, when the kingdom split, Gad tried being the priesthood. That's why even today, you can still see they wear their garments with the fringes and the border of blue. They still call their medicine men or their priest shaman. Right. You understand? Which is basically the Hebrew word for oil. That's you understand? Right. The Hebrew word for anointing. You understand? So now they came over here with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of the Lord and his judgments with Israel. If you go and you look, Gad would stone you if you practice witchcraft because you suffer a witch not to live. They would stone you if you committed treason, meaning if you broke the laws that they had in the land. That's the same thing that we would do in Israel. Next slide. What we got going on here? It's the Star of Remphan. What you're seeing right here is a watercolor painting by George Barbier in 1882 to 1932. He was painting all these different paintings, man. This also came out of, remember, the ethnology of America. And you see a Gadite sailing in his canoe with the shield of David right on it. Because once again, this is found in Peru. This is found everywhere amongst us, man. Next slide. The North American Indian, the following is from J.J. Mombert's History of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, page 63, with an extent from the letter written by William Penn to the Committee of the Free. What they start to find out is that he states that the origin of the North American Indians, I am ready to believe them of the Jewish race. I mean the stock of the 10 tribes, and that for the following reasons. First, they were to go to a land not planted or known, which to be sure Asia and Africa, if not Europe, and all that intended into extraordinary judgment upon their passage, might make the passage not uneasy for them. Meaning what? All those lands were already inhabited. As it is not impossible in itself that the easternmost parts of Asia and the westernmost parts of America. In the next place, I find them like in the countenance. Now he starts talking about all these different things, start talking about the coins that they found, start talking about how they have altars, feasts, tabernacles, all the same things that they found in South and Central America. Next slide. The Hebrew letters found engraved in the top rock at Ticonderoga and the sheens found in Georgia and the inscriptions on the shekel are evidence that those who were taken by Salmanasseh in the reign of Hosea, they found coins that date directly back to the time of Solomon. Right. They found Hebrew coins with Hebrew letters, you understand, that go directly back to when Solomon was ruling, found all over America. Next slide. So now, are these the only artifacts they found? Hell no. you start to see the Newark Decalogue stone. They say the Decalogue stone, why? Because they found the 10 Commandments written on this stone in Newark, Ohio. Right. The Bat Creek stone. Now, mind you, there's a lot more artifacts than this. Right. However, if they weren't found on an official Smithsonian dig, they try to say that it don't matter. They try to say that it's illegitimate. But the thing is that all these were found by the Smithsonian. All these were found by archaeologists that they want to, you understand, identify with. So is the Bat Creek stone. That they took the Bat Creek stone and they didn't know what the hell it was. They threw it in a box for years. And somebody went pulled out and said, yo, we were reading this upside down. They flipped it over and said for the tribe of Judah. Right. You understand? The Los Lunes stone. Once again, this is the 10 Commandments that the brother, where you at, brother? Right there. My man right there. My man knew. He knows history. You understand? This was 10 Commandments that was found carved into a rock inside of Mexico, New Mexico. The Hebrew petroglyph panel, meaning that you go and you look, they have petroglyphs of all Hebrew carved inside the Americas. The Tuscan lead artifacts, the earthworks that were found, the Newark keystone, and the Newark stone bowl. Next slide. Just so you can get a visual. Hebrew on the keystone. Hebrew all over the Decalogue stone. The bowl of incense, you understand, burning, found with Hebrew on it. Next slide. This is the Bat Creek stone that they found in Tennessee, clearly with ancient Hebrew on it. Next slide. The Los Lunes stone. This is literally the 10 Commandments right here. Man. That's right. You understand? Literally. Next slide. Why is it the same ancient Hebrew carved into the side of it? Because this is the Decalogue stone that they also found. And once again, they find this in North America. They find this in South America. Right. They find this all over the place. Next slide. Yeah, now we get to chill. Okay? Well, I get to chill. Y'all watch.
The Hopewell mound builders built hundreds of thousands of structures out of various types of earth materials. These structures included burial mounds, animal effigy mounds, forts, temples, and advanced geometric structures with lunar and solar alignments. Many of these structures have been leveled down and destroyed as the United States expanded west and built itself right over them. But some still exist today. Early U.S. settlers would create detailed survey drawings of some of these structures. There are a few good books which were published by the Smithsonian in the mid-1800s that show detailed survey drawings from the Ohio and New York areas. They're called Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, Aboriginal Monuments of New York, and Antiquities of New York. But there was a one-of-a-kind mound builder structure that was unlike all the rest, at least as far as I know. In 1823, Major Isaac Roberdeau of the United States Army Corps of Engineers created this survey drawing.
What that look like right there? Huh? I don't know what it look like. I want you. What does this look like right here? A what? That's a menorah that they carved into the earth, and then they turn this into an oil lamp, and this is the oil lamp for the menorah. Hit play.
Of a massive earth structure just southwest of present-day Fayetteville, Ohio. Notice the Hebrew oil lamp. Notice the 9-candle menorah. And notice other ancient and sacred symbols such as the compass and the square. Another drawing of this structure is included in one of the Smithsonian books I mentioned earlier, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley. And still, there are some who insist that this survey drawing was fake and that the structure never even existed. Unfortunately, the United States Army Corps of Engineers completely destroyed this structure in the early 1900s and leveled it into flat ground. But why? Was it an intentional attempt to erase this odd Hebrew structure from American history?
You got damn right.
Simply out of carelessness and lack of respect for ancient American antiquities.
So now the point is that they started to destroy our artifacts. And now, mind you, this is in the same place that they found the keystone. This is in the same place that they found the Decalogue stone. This is in the same place that they will find all these Hebrew artifacts. And they leveled them and tried to keep them out of the history books. They said that there was more people living in Hopewell than there probably was in Chicago today. They said that this was an ancient civilization, that they found a footprint of a pyramid that was even bigger than that of in Giza. They started finding all this, but most of it was destroyed and then used to build some of the colonies, and cities are built on top of it right now. I could do a whole lecture just on Hopewell. I promise you. So now, we come right back. Now, this is also talking about William Penn, who saw and communicated with he's talking about the Indians that he communicated with. On his first arrival in America, while their original uncontaminated state, before they were debased and ruined by the connection with those who called themselves civilized Christians, meaning what? The more contact that we started to have with the so-called white man, the more we started to lose our culture, the more we started to lose who we are. That's why if you go in certain books, you might even find, like, for example, the Taínos. You got some books that say they were a matriarchal society. You have another book that'll say they were a patriarchal society, meaning men ruled. Some say women ruled. If you go and you look at the dates, the ones that were saying that it was patriarchal was before they were really destroyed. And the ones that said that it was matriarchal was after they were already conquered. Why? Because all the men are dead. All the men are working in the mines. You understand? And it's just like today. If they would have come look at the ghetto, they wouldn't say that men run it. They'd say women run the ghetto. Why? Because 2 million of us are in jail. You understand? Because how many of us is in the grave right now? You understand? So that means that the more that we get involved with their culture, the more that we start to lose who the hell we are. So now, they wore earrings and nose jewels, bracelets on their arms. So he starts talking into how they dress. Next slide. I want to start moving a little quicker. We still got a lot more. Give me a next slide. So now, a lot of this came from the 10 tribes of Israel, North American Indian. So now this book is basically a compilation of James Adair, Ethan Smith, all the different writers who wrote about the North American Indians. They put all the excerpts in there. Next slide. So now, an old Charibi Indian in very early day thus addressed one of these white people. Our people are become almost as bad as yours. We are so much altered since you came among us that we hardly know ourselves. And we think it is owing to some melancholy, a change, that hurricanes are more frequently here than formerly, meaning they knew that the Lord controlled the weather. And they knew that these storms and their destruction was directly correlating with them following the white man, with them going into the ways of the Gentiles. You understand? Give me the next slide. So now, it says they're so degenerated, they cannot give tolerable accounts of the origin of their religious rites, ceremonies, and customs. So he starts talking about how they completely destroyed and conquered us, that we didn't know who the hell we are. So if you go to a reservation now, or in the last 200 years, and you try speaking to them, and they say, oh, we're not the children of Israel, it's because you took that from us. But so you got to go to all the people who were studying us from the 15, 16, 1700s, and these are the accounts that they give us. Next slide. So now, it says that the Indian languages have never been reduced by any certainty by letters, but must have been exposed to change and misconceptions. They try to say that we didn't have an alphabet, which is a damn lie. We're going to prove that tonight. It says, their awful example of white people, we are this day confined to few traces of their original language, their religious rites, customs, and few common traditions that may labor to be collected to form opinions upon. The Indian language in general are very copious and expressive, considering the narrow sphere in which they move, their ideas being few in comparison with civilized nations. They have neither cases nor, I can't even see that word right now, declensions. They have few or no prepositions. They remedy this by affixes and suffixes, and their words are invariably the same, both in number. So meaning what? They start turning around and saying this is completely identical to Hebrew. This is just like the Mexican language. This is just like the Chilean language. This is just like the Mohican verb. You understand? Because Hebrew don't have prepositions. It's attached to the word. You understand? Like, for example, Bahashem. You understand? You don't say, it's not just Ba, Ha. That Ba and Ha is attached to the Shum, which is in the name of. But that's the exact way that the language was. So now it starts talking about how expressive their speech was. Next word. Actually, the next slide. So now it says their language abounds with guttural and strong aspirations, which make it very sonorous and bold, like Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shabarakatah. A bold language, you understand? You go and you take a look at the language of the so-called Jew. You understand that bastard? He turns around and he's gonna say Abala Yehuda Kadar La'ai. You see how soft that is? You understand? You hear that in Hebrew, it's Yahweh the Qadar La'arataza. You understand? Guttural, bold. And it says that their speech abounds with metaphors after the matter of Eastern nations. What are we learning? The Orient, the East, all of us coming over from Israel. Next slide. It says a deer records a sentence of the speech of Indian caption to his companions in his oration for war. Near the conclusion, so now basically, this is what they said. It says that their guns were burning, their tomahawks were thirsty to drink the blood of their enemies, and their trusty arrows were impatient to be on the wing. And lest they delay, they should burn their hearts any longer. He gave them the cool, refreshing word to join the holy ark. That sounds like something David would have said. That sounds like Psalms right there.
That's right.
You understand?
Right.
Next slide. So now it is said among their principal or beloved men that they have been handed down from their ancestors. Excuse me. Yo, hold on. I need y'all to pay attention to this. I need y'all to pay good attention to this. It is said among their principal or beloved men that they have it handed down from their ancestors, that the book which the white people have was once theirs. What's the book that white people had when they came here? The Bible. You understand? They said, what the hell are you trying to do, giving us our own book back? Give me the next slide. So now, the Indians to the east say that previous to the white man coming into this country, their ancestors were in the habit of using circumcision, but laterally not being able to assign any reason to it for such a strange practice. Their young people insisted on it being abolished. Because once again, as time started to go on, we couldn't remember why we were circumcising our young. But meanwhile, once again, we were speaking Hebrew. We had the shield of David, but white people started to erase our culture. Next slide. The village where we once were consisted of 140 huts containing about 800 warriors, 1,500 women, and at least 2,000 children, and some Paducas having 4 wives. Just, I got to throw polygamy in there real quick. Next slide. So now, the Indians will not cohabit with women while they are out at war. They religiously abstain from every type of intercourse, even with their own wives, for the space of 3 days and nights before they go out to war. This is the same thing that we would do. What would Joshua always say? Purify yourself before we go to battle. It's the same thing they did with Gideon. It's the same thing we did anytime we went to war, because we had to be clean if we wanted the angels to be around us. We had to be clean if we wanted the Lord to be with us. You understand? Which is why it says this is the same thing that Joshua commanded. That they avoided themselves. They washed their clothes and avoided all impurities and matrimonial intercourse. When the Indians returned home victorious over an enemy, they sing the triumph song to Yahweh. What they're pronouncing is Yohiwa, ascribing the victory to him, like the religious customs of the Israelites. They were calling their God Yahweh. And every time they won a battle, they would praise the Most High. Give me the next slide. The Indians, also agreeable in their theocracy of Israel, think that the Great Spirit to be the immediate head of their state, and that God chose them out of all the rest of mankind. Meaning that they knew that we were dealing with the Most High, and that's who was the head of their government. Like they had the chiefs set up over their all different tribes, which is exactly what Moses did. Moses went and took wise men, made them chiefs among, and when you go and you look at the structures of the Native American Indians, it was the same exact thing. They set their government up exactly the same way that Moses did. Give me the next slide. Matter of fact, go back real quick. One other thing too. Almost forgot this. It says, and they hold the white people in explicable contempt. We're not going to let that out. They charge the white man. You understand? So now, meaning that they literally, you understand, have trash words for the so-called white man, but they flatter their brothers as the beloved people. Next slide. So now, when any of their beloved people die, they soften the thoughts of his death by saying he has only gone to sleep with his beloved forefathers. This is the same thing that they said about David when he got the prophecy about Yahushua. It says, when the day comes that you go and you rest with your fathers, all the parts of speech, all the parts of our customs and culture was the same. Next slide. So now, as the Israelites were divided into tribes and chiefs over them, so the Indians divided themselves. Each tribe formed a little community within itself. The sachem of each tribe is a necessary part from which conveys treaties. So meaning what? They had affixes and seals, you understand, that they used. Meaning what? They had standards. You go and you take a look right here. Manasseh, Gad, Reuben. You understand? Just like we used to have seals and we used to use animals, the North American Indians were doing the same thing with their families. Their genealogical names, which they assume are derived from either the names of those animals, or matter of fact, they started to find cherubim amongst them. They started to find angels in some of these symbols and seals. They have families of the eagle, the panther, the tiger, the buffalo. You understand? The family of the bear, the deer. You understand? This is the same exact thing that we did. This is the same exact thing. You go and you take a look. Judah's the lion. Benjamin's the wolf. They took that with them as well. Next slide. The Indians, however, bear no religious respect to the animals from which they derive the names of their tribes, but will kill any of their species when opportunity serves. Meaning what? Israel has never been religious. And that's why they try to understand our religion. We don't have a religion, we have a culture. And if you study our culture, that's when you see we practice circumcision. If you study our culture, that's when you see we carry an ark to war. That's when you see we separate ourselves from women when they're unclean. We separate ourselves from sisters to not sleep with them before we go to war, so the Lord will be with us. That's right. We go and we lock ourselves in for the Sabbath day and don't work on that day. You go and you look at all this. This was happening in North, Central, and South America. Well, there is no tribe or individual among them, however, by the name Opossum, which is the Cherokee still Sakia, which is the Kota Indians Shuka, synonymous with that of the hog. Remember, none of these tribes were eating pork. None of these tribes were eating swine. And none of these tribes, although they'll name themselves just like we did with our sigils, with our standards, none of them will name themselves after a pork, after hog, after swine. You understand? And they formally reckoned it as a filthy and uneatable animal. Why? Because once again, they said that this is our customs of our forefathers. Because they knew that our forefathers were Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's right. Next slide. So now, for everyone has his own family or tribe, and when one of them is speaking, either of the individuals or habitation of them, any of his tribes, say, he is of my house, or it is of my house. This is like Vayath Dawadah. You understand? When King David prayed in the divine wrath, you understand? This is the same thing. It was always the house of David. Well, we talked about our houses. When Indians are traveling in their own country, they inquire for a house of their own tribe. And if there be any, they go to it. They are kindly received, though they never saw this person before. Meaning what? This is the law of the stranger. The law of the stranger ain't talking about taking care of no white man. It's talking about a brother or sister that you never knew. Let me tell you something. I don't know Captain Mawaquad outside of his truth. You understand? And he put me up inside his house. You understand? Oh, Captain Zakar. Captain Zakar is famous for housing brothers internationally who come down for the Passover. You understand? Slept on the floor next to some of these brothers, man, that come from all over the world. And you know what? He puts them up and he says, this is your house. He goes to his slavery. And he's like, you know what I'm saying? Just be cool, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. You know what I'm saying? Make sure the brothers got what they need. Now make sure the brothers got their blankets. The brothers got their pillows. Because we take care of the strangers, the people who's our family, the people who's one West. Because this is the law of the stranger. Don't ever try to give that to another nation. That's right. Let me get another slide. So now I want y'all to pay very close attention. You see this right here? This is how Gadites would dress it, right? Next slide. This look like General Q right here at the last Passover. You know what I mean? With the garment, with the fringes. You see the border of blue right there going all the way up the sleeve. And now notice that it's rough material. It's cowhide. Notice, like, I hate the word, but notice the swag that they got going on, the style that they got going on. This is very important because I want you to pay attention when I bring Ruben up, because Ruben's coming up next. Next slide. Now, also on the cowhide, also this was a warrior's portrayal of a puberty dance. What y'all see right here? You understand? Y'all see the Magun Dawada again in North America.
Right.
Because this is what we did. This is who we were as a people. That's the symbol of our nation, the sigil of our empire.